Welcome to Fitness and Consciousness. My guest is Chris Atkins. He's a personal trainer at So Be Fit Personal Training, where that's where I met him. That's where I do some of my training. So thanks for being on the show, Chris.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So I've known you, I guess, for a couple years or so. I started there in 2015. You've been there that whole time, right?
Yep.
So how did you get into fitness to begin with?
Well, growing up in high school, I was playing volleyball and basketball, and our volleyball coach started doing functional training, sport-specific training, a lot of plyometrics, body weight exercises, just a lot of things I'd never really seen before. And this was like in the late 90s. So I thought that stuff was really cool, and my performance in volleyball just skyrocketed, actually. And I was pretty surprised by the benefits. And so after that, I started working out pretty regularly, primarily with body weight exercises and those types of things. I could barely do one chin-up when I started. Yeah. So the pull-up test in high school was always a challenge, but initially. So I really just wanted to get stronger and perform better in sports. And then it became just kind of like almost a singular focus for me. After high school and college, my athletic career was soon over, and I decided just to continue on training and I guess in some ways bodybuild as well. Not competitively by any stretch, but just for physique, and self-confidence, I guess. So from there, basically, I didn't do it professionally, just for my own, and then helping other people. Like even in college, I'd help other guys in my dorm get in shape. I had some guys there that really needed some help, kind of getting some guidance and how to get in shape. And I did the pull-up thing in the door jam,
Yeah.
wearing the what do they call them back in the 90s? The wife beaters, the tank tops, that whole deal. Just trying to basically stick with it in college. And out of college, I started weightlifting with a guy who used to be a football player, and that guy was huge. I mean, his name was Adam, and he had arms on him bigger than my head, and I have quite a big head. So it's like just the sight of him in the gym was really humbling. And I had, like I said, I've been weight training and training with body weight stuff for a long time, but training with him was really cool because he taught me a lot. And
Did you mean like Olympic weightlifting?
Sorry, I mean more like just general strength training. We didn't necessarily do any powerlifting, but he showed me a lot of stuff, auxiliary exercises, just kind of like a hybrid between like football training, like they would do weightlifting for football, and some bodybuilding kind of stuff. And then I kind of started to incorporate a little bit of my body weight training in our training that we would do together. And so he enjoyed some of that. And then I actually got him to start training legs more. So that was good. So we were kind of good for each other, I hope. But from there, I put on a lot more mass and size than I ever had in my life. And I enjoyed doing that. My athleticness, I guess, athleticism kind of declined during that time, ironically enough. And then I was wondering why that was. It was just I was too bulky, and I wasn't very flexible or mobile. And then I came across like kettlebell training and all that kind of stuff, mobility training, and started going towards that realm. And I noticed my athleticism go back up, and my ability to jump and run come back as well. So I started actually training some people. I was working as a pastor then, and I started as a youth pastor, and I started training some of the youth in my youth group. They'd come over every day after school. I bought some equipment. The church bought some equipment as well, like squat rack and some kettlebells and dumbbells and bands and those kinds of things. And we just started training every day after school, and that's when I really kind of got the bug for personal training. And I noticed one time I was meeting with my boss. It's kind of funny when your boss says something about fitness being your passion, when your passion should be your job. I felt kind of bad, but he kind of nailed it right on the head that fitness was my passion and I should be, pursuing that. And so that's basically a long story, I guess, of how I got into fitness, but I've always been really interested by it.
So when you were in college, you weren't going for a exercise degree, or you were?
No, actually, so my degree was in ministries and in religion, and at that time, that's what I thought I wanted to do. Since then, that's changed, and but I would, at some point, like to go back and possibly get my degree, maybe when my kids are a little older, and have a little bit more energy and time to pursue that, but.
Yeah, I think practically it's like there's nothing wrong with getting a degree. I didn't go to college for anything. I was a personal trainer by the time I was like 20 years old, so I was like already had my dream job when I was 20. I wasn't making my dream money yet. I was an employee and whatever. But so when you what was the path like? What certification did you decide to get, or what route was it that you took to get to be a trainer?
Yeah. So when I was, I was in Wisconsin training just without a certification. It was just more like a group fitness kind of thing. It wasn't necessarily like personal training because I didn't train clients one-on-one necessarily. Well, I guess I should take that back. I did train one kid who had a ACL tear as a football player, but that was, I think, the only one I can recall. But when I was just mentioning about the kettlebell training and my foray into that, I got into the Monkey Bar Gym out of Madison, Wisconsin. John Hines, he is an excellent trainer, one of the best, I think, in the game, very knowledgeable. Great athlete himself, even in his 50s, he can do things that most people can't, physically. And so my first certification, actually, I wanted it to be from them. Is their certified natural trainer. They had an intensive course back then. And I don't think they have the intensive course anymore. They just have different certifications you can get at different times. But at that time, it was a week-long certification course that was hosted in Madison, which is a great town. I love that town. Their gym is really cool. I think you would love it there. Just the total vibe it has. It's very minimalistic. There's no mirrors in the gym. He would always say, if you are strong, you're going to look good. People are so worried about looking good, but he's like, if you're strong and you're athletic, you're going to look damn good, is what he would always say. Sorry, yeah. Mom, I didn't want to say that. But yeah, so that was the first certification course that I took, and I'm terrible at taking tests. I'm like anxiety ridden to the T's when I start writing a test, but I managed from that course to learn a ton and passed the written test barely, and I aced the practical test. And that kind of balanced out, I guess. But John was the guy who was doing my exam. And I was so nervous because this is the guy I've been looking up to for some number of years. And he's the one, doing my practical exam. I got so nervous that my stomach cramped up when I was trying to do some sort of ab exercise because of the nerves. But he's like, Chris, breathe. I was like, oh, yeah. And it was really an amazing experience. And I look back on it fondly. And so that's basically it was a goal I had for myself. And I remember driving back to Indy from Madison. I just cried, because I was so proud of myself that I finally accomplished like some goal that I had for myself that meant a lot to me, and it was just a beautiful time.
So what kind of techniques were you tested on?
Well, if I can recall, basically from the practical exam, there was a lot of body weight exercises, some kettlebell exercises. We had to, with monkey bar training, the main baseline that they use for any movement is based off of Aishin's Yoga by Roger Aishins. And what that would set people up to do is just make sure that their form is right and that you can cue the movement with certain verbal cues that would help put their body back in alignment, and sometimes with a light physical touch. And I think, if I can't recall a lot of the exercises that we were tested on, but there was a good mixture of, like different progressions of, for handstands, for example, you had to be able to progress from a basic stability level is what they would call it for your average Joe off the street. You probably wouldn't expect your average person to be able to do a kick up into a handstand, but they have progressions to be able to get people from being completely sedentary to being able to do a handstand freestanding, which is pretty cool in my opinion. But so some of those things we had to learn. We had to know all the progressions. We had to know the most basic, intermediate, and then advanced ones. And it was a lot, but I guess I must have absorbed more than I thought, and I was really glad that I passed.
Yeah, it is a relief. I remember when I was taking the Strong First test, I was like kind of sure I could pass it, but I'd only done the hardest part, the 100 snatches with 53 pounds in 5 minutes.
Wow.
I'd only done it a couple times.
Yeah.
Or maybe even like once before the test.
Yeah.
And at the test, I had this shoulder injury.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to press 53 pounds 5 times each arm.
Yeah.
And there were times during the certification I couldn't even press 35 pounds with it.
Man.
And we have to do get-ups, and I couldn't even post on it. And I was like asking my team leader, I was like, what if I can't do this? I was like, I can do it sometimes, but sometimes I can't even do the 35-pounder.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, if you don't get it, then it's up to your instructor, and then you could send a video in up to like 3 months later.
Oh, that's good.
And I was like, that's not going to happen. I'm gutting this thing out. And just going in, I was like so sore. It was in Chicago, and it was like walking back to the hotel room, just so sore. And it was like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And Saturday I was walking back, and I was like doubting myself, and I was like, oh man, I'm going to fail. And then I'm like walking up this little hill on the bridge back to the hotel, and I was like, just psyching myself up for like, no, you came here, you got it, you can do this, just gut it out, make it happen. And then I ended up getting it.
Nice.
And it was, it's kind of this whole drama involved with it. And it's only like
intense.
6 techniques, but they have to be on. And then the snatch test is what gets a lot of people. I saw a guy fail with 99.
No kidding.
So he was one of them that had to send his video in. Yeah.
That's devastating.
He got his 100th rep at about 5:02 or something like that. And the instructor, I was already done with mine, and I could see her like, you didn't get it.
Oh, man.
And it's like,
you missed by an inch, you missed by a mile, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
It's either 99 is less than 100.
Yeah.
And
I think
that's what he got.
Standard's a standard. Yeah.
He did end up passing it. I'm pretty sure he even got his level 2. And
good.
So he moved on from that. But yeah, I understand what you're talking about, how like the emotional like drain of it, because you put so much into this thing, and it's and there's certifications that are pretty easy to get.
Yeah.
So, but you're talking about like you picked one that's difficult.
Yep.
And like you're like not 100% sure that you're like, or were you 100% sure that you were going to get it, or did you think that there was a possibility of
for sure
failure?
Yeah, I'm always battling like any person, I would think, some insecurities, and with that comes doubting yourself, and if you're good enough in that moment. And I didn't think I was gonna. I mean, I think I got like a C or something on the written test because I just don't test well. You know what I mean? And so, and then with the practical, I think it was more just nerves. You know what I mean? Like I remember just going in there, like being more nervous than I was when I was 16 years old, getting my driver's test, which I failed the first time because I was so nervous.
So you're having flashbacks.
Yeah, PTSD or something like that, but not quite. So just that moment of just feeling like, man, I did that. I was really quite proud of myself. It was a good a boost for my self-esteem, and they actually had some some benchmarks. They call it the Silverback Challenge. It wasn't required to pass the exam because some of those challenges I still practice and try to get to, but the standards are like really hard. Like there's like vertical jump tests. There's how much you can clean and press, and you know what I mean, for reps in a certain amount of time, and with kettlebells and and broad jumps. I tried doing the broad jump thing, and he's like, you got plenty of power, but your technique is terrible. I was like, well, thank you for the half compliment, and it was true, you know. But yeah, it's just those things. There was one challenge that I did get because I tried the running one, and that was an embarrassment. I'm terrible at running, but so there was one challenge that I was like, okay, it's a kettlebell one. I should be able to get this. I think it was 28 Ks. You had to get 30 cleans, double cleans, in I think it was 60 seconds. And I was the only person in the whole class that got it.
You said double 32s?
I think it was...
Or what'd you say?
I think it was either 28s or 32s.
28s.
It was probably 28s, I think. Because I think it was 61.8 pounds or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I remember like it was yesterday having John and now his wife right close and just, okay, Chris, come on, dig deep. And I tell you what, I dug into the basement to get those reps out. And, oh, man, it was just exhilarating. I honestly didn't know if I could do it, but I was like, oh, what the heck, I'm going to try. It wasn't mandatory that we tried this Silverback Challenge, but I wanted to try it to prove to myself that I could do it, because I knew I wasn't going to get the highest vertical jump or the fastest 400 or any of those things, but I love kettlebell training, and I wanted to try to get that one for me, you know. And when I got it, I kind of got in trouble because I put the weights down a little too hard, I guess, on the floor, and I was just exhausted, you know. So I had to apologize for that, but you know, I want to be respectful of people's equipment and space. So, but I just remember sitting down and being like, oh man, yeah, maybe I can do this training thing. So it was beautiful.
Yeah, that's really cool. There was something that kind of sunk into me like about setting the mind. And so it's like, okay, well, you had to do you said it was 30 of them in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's 125 pounds basically.
Mm-hmm.
But there was something, it may be hard to like articulate, because like, yeah, you got your mind set on something and then you do it. I mean, who doesn't know that? But there was like something that kind of sunk into me doing this kind of training where like it's just like setting the mind. And I probably won't explain it very well, but it's just like, this is the number and this is what you're going to do. And you just set the mind at it, and then the body you just will do that.
Mm-hmm. And
some of it I had learned like when I first started studying Valery Fedorenko,
mm-hmm.
who he did 911 push presses with a 70-pound kettlebell.
That's crazy.
Switching hands every 10 reps. And it took him, and that's without putting it down, wow. 911 of them.
That's
he
amazing.
did it as a tribute to 9/11. Did you know about that one?
I think I remember you telling me about that at one point. Yeah.
Just a crazy feat
That's amazing.
Of mental and physical endurance.
Yeah.
And strength endurance and toughness.
Mm-hmm.
And he did it as a tribute to 9/11, and he's from Russia.
Wow.
So to me, that was a really profound thing that he did.
Mm-hmm. But
it was also like, so I was telling somebody else about it, a friend of mine, Gabriella, she's was here from Australia, and I was telling her about it, and she's like, oh, how many do you think that you could get? And I was like, maybe 30. And
mm-hmm.
I just made that up. I never even tried to do that many before. And I was like, I think I kind of lied about that, but I kind of wanted to brag a little bit to her, and so I went home and I did 30 of them.
That's awesome.
And I was like, all right, that's pretty cool. So, and I had a couple lessons from a guy that was certified by Valery, and then I ended up doing 90 of them. So I decided to add 10 per week.
Wow.
And I did 90. and it took me about, I think it was like 19 minutes.
Yeah.
And Valerie did 911 in about an hour and a half. So he did like 10 times as many in like 4 times the time or something like that.
Yeah.
It's insane. And this was a very unpleasant experience. And like the next week I was supposed to do 100, and I was pretty sure I could do it. But I ended up reading Dr. Stuart McGill's book.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was reading Pavel's stuff, and it's like, well, if you want to know why you shouldn't do the kettlebell sport type rack, which is required, I think, to do that many push presses where you rest your elbow on the hip bone, and then read Stuart McGill's book. So I read Stuart McGill's book, and it ruined my dreams of adding to this number. But it made me think, like, all right, you're just setting your mind to this, because how many times could I push press the 70? Not very many. 70 pounds is still heavy for me to press.
Right.
And there's like, so it's like you can lift heavy weights a low amount of times, and you can lift light weights a high number of times. It seems really obvious.
Right.
But what if you could lift a heavy weight for high reps?
Yeah.
Okay. All you have to do is change your mind and say that you can lift a heavy weight for high reps. So it doesn't make sense at first, but that's how you can lift 70 pounds 900 times, 911 times. I don't know how many people on the planet could get to 911
not too many.
Like Valerie did, but just changing the mindset, because I've never done probably more than 5.
Mm-hmm.
And so I jumped from like 5 to 30,
mm-hmm.
and then 60, 70, 90. So
that's amazing.
It was just, that's what had me thinking of, like when you were just like taking these tests that were harder than what you had, because really you could have just got like a weekend certification.
Yeah.
No physical test, and that's what I did when I first got into training. I guess I didn't know what I didn't know. I was certified by ACE,
mm-hmm.
and you pretty much just study this book. You take the written test, and you're a trainer.
Mm.
So it's cool that you wanted something where it's like, it's a lot more profound.
Mm-hmm.
And then when somebody, like if I'm looking for somebody to help me teach at a workshop or something, I don't care if you have a degree or not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to look at your certification.
Yeah.
Like, what can you actually do?
Right.
Because I've seen like these people with master's degrees, and I've brought it up before, and I don't have anything against college for sure. I didn't go, and I wish I did go, kind of. I always hated school, so it's like I have a lot of respect for degrees, but I've also seen people with master's degrees in exercise science, and they can't coach a squat.
Mm-hmm.
So is that like what kind of made you choose this? You knew it was going to be difficult, and you knew...
Yeah, I think, I needed to challenge myself physically, mentally, and emotionally. I mean, just overall. And I needed the mentorship too. And I kept in touch with John and a couple of other people too, just from the gym, and helped mentor me and shape me, because I was completely green to the training other people aspect of things. I had only been training myself and some of my buddies, but the expectation's pretty low, when in that environment. So I think just touching on what you said, I think there's a quote, I can't remember it exactly, but it's like, it doesn't matter how much you know, it's how well you can coach, and I think that's pretty profound for me, because I sometimes will be around other trainers that have, like you're talking about the pedigree, that I sometimes feel like, oh man, I wish I had X, Y, Z, and I can feel a little insecure at that time and be like, man, I really wish I had this or that. But in that moment, like you're talking about, they may not be able to teach a squat, and in that context, what good are they really? Those types of trainers, they're not. They're a liability, in my opinion. And people, I think when they're looking for trainers, I might be wrong, but in my perspective, they're looking for someone that can help coach them. They're looking for someone to not think for them necessarily, but to guide them, to lead them. And we just need to know what we're doing, feel confident in what we're doing. It might be different from what other people are doing, but I think it's, as long as we're helping people learn the basics and learn them well, before we start to load them, have them moving well, and then adding load and watching their form. And just this morning I was with a client that I was just training for the first time, and I was watching his squat form. I had him using just a light dumbbell in a goblet squat, and he'd been training at a really nice gym in Indy, and you don't ever want to make assumptions, is what I'm saying, like that someone is going to have something mobility perfect or these types of things, because if their tailbone's tucking under when they're at the bottom of the squat and they're loaded at all, I'm worried about compromising their lumbar. So it's like what you're saying, just being able to coach people well, being observant, knowing what to look for and being able to cue them. And that's some of the things I've been learning recently. I've been taking some continuing education courses offered through TRX. Now, I thought initially, I'm like, how good are these courses really going to be? I kind of maybe prejudged them because it's a main brand, And so I was wrong. I went to Ball State for 2 different day-long courses just to get more familiar with the suspension training devices. And mainly what I took away from that was just some of the verbal cues that I wasn't always great at giving, because I just always assumed, if I just explain things really well, people are going to get it. But they were saying in that course, they're trying to do what you're asking them to do, but they don't always get it. And you need to succinctly be able to tell them, okay, eyes on the horizon, just these really simple swing thoughts is I think what they called it. And it was really quite profound. I'm often pretty, simple in my training, but just those simple thoughts and different things I can help guide my clients better, I'm all for it.
Yeah, the cues thing, that is a really interesting one, because as trainers, we'll tell the clients the same thing over and over again, and it's not like they just get it at deeper and deeper levels. Like, you can explain the perfect squat, it doesn't take very long. Mm-hmm. But how long does it take to really master it? There's long-time competitors that are still going to coaches to get these little tweaks. And what does the coach say? The same thing he's been saying for the last 10 years. He's been coaching the guy. But it's like, oh, that's what you mean. Oh. Yeah. And then it's like this, you just keep digging deeper and deeper into this, what seems like a very simple technique. And it's, the same with martial arts, and it's like you keep being told the same thing. Or you can explain boxing. How long does it take to teach somebody how to box? Just a minute. Right. Here's the jab, here's the cross, here's a hook. Get after it. Why aren't you the champion of the world?
Right.
It's because it's all these little fine tuning things that never end. So when you first start with a client, what do you do? So if I'm coming to you, you don't know anything about me, how do you start?
Yeah. So I try to gather as much information as I can, just conversationally with the client, just asking them their experience with exercise and any kind of athletic, endeavor whatsoever. And depending on what I can kind of gather, just seeing them. I try not to make snap judgments about people, but, generally try to say, okay, this person seems to be a little overweight. They might seem to be walking like they have bad knees or sore backs or these types of things, and try to keep that in mind. And then when I start to train them, I try to basically take them through the progressions of the fundamental movements that I do, like a push, pull, a hinge, and the accessory type of movements, and try to get them through a workout. It's a bit more of a regression at first. I always try to start off a little easier than maybe they need, just so I can kind of watch and be in tune with how well they are moving through a squat. Are they unloading the squat too early? Are they too knee dominant? Can they hip hinge? Most people can't. So just trying to cue those things well. And I'll try to do just a basic I wouldn't necessarily call it an assessment, but it's like a workout that's also got a bit of an assessment for me to know, like, okay, this person's going to need a little extra work on a hip hinge. So I'll have to try to regress that and address it with more time in the workout that we have. So, and then from there, just trying to find out their goals. I mean, what are you aiming to do with this? Are you trying to lose weight? Are you trying to gain strength, or trying to gain more flexibility? Just trying to help them to set realistic expectations too. And that's something that I'm learning as a trainer, is learning to be honest with my clients, like what's realistic and what may not be. And so that way they don't get frustrated, if they're not seeing the results that they may want or, would desire. Well, I thought I was going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger if I trained with you, Well,
yeah. All you got to do is watch Pumping Iron. Do you sure you want to go through that?
Yeah. Looks pretty bad.
Yeah,
pretty
he had the help of some steroids, but still.
Oh, for sure.
The effort is a lot more than what most people would imagine, or like women that think, oh, I shouldn't lift heavy weights. I don't want to end up getting really bulky.
Yeah.
It's unlikely that you're going to do that on accident.
Yeah.
I mean, that takes so much effort and dedication in that direction to gain that kind of muscle, where you see like a lot of it with these like CrossFit, all these CrossFit women, and I think some of them probably are on performance enhancers. Once you get to competitive levels where there's money at stake, fame at stake, they're taking something. Maybe probably not all of them, I know, but yeah, the expectations and like when I'm with the clients, it's I think some of what I used to get was like a lack of variability, or trying to, like, what's the word where you do a bunch of different things.
Oh yeah, just a variety.
Yep. So, and I could still be that way, but I was like, there's a reason for this. There's a reason why there's 2 weightlifting techniques in the Olympics. 2, not like a 50.
Right.
And so when you're with somebody at first, like, have you had that kind of critique before, or are you giving them a bunch of stuff?
Yeah, oh for sure. One of the most common critiques I get about my training is that they want more variety.
Yeah.
My workouts are pretty boring, like the workouts that I do for myself, because I want to progress. I want to get more, repetitions in a certain amount of time, or I want to be able to get more weight for more reps, whatever the case might be, And for my clients, it's hard to objectively like quantify like you're making a progress or not, unless you have some sort of protocol in place where you're going to be doing a wheelhouse of exercises that they can make progress on. Like, I struggle with that, because clients sometimes get bored, and I understand that, because not everyone's going to love training as much as I do. They're doing it mostly because they know they need to, and they feel that it's good for them, which is great. I'm glad they're doing it, and I'm hoping they continue. My livelihood depends on it, and their health too, which is more important. And so, it's just it's a struggle constantly. I feel like in the fitness industry, to be able to provide a service where people are getting results, and results come through progressive overload and proper programming and making sure that people aren't overtraining, but yet that they're receiving a sufficient training stimulus to be able to break down and rebuild stronger, and with proper recovery and rest, and which sometimes doesn't always happen with clients, as you know. But certainly I would like to be the cool fun trainer that does all the upside down Bosu ball stuff and those types of things, but those things have their place for sure, but it's not necessarily my deal. And and I feel like there's always needing to be like a certain fit. Maybe they need someone else to train them and those types of things, and that's okay. I want someone to be with a trainer that is a good fit for them and what they want to do. So
I think it's just getting across like a lot of times my workouts are pretty simple. I might do like 2 things. And like last like Tuesday or whatever, I go to the gym. I had like 15 minutes before my client. And so I just started loading up the deadlift bar. And I just did deadlifts. That was it.
Yeah.
I didn't do any stretching. Well, we don't have to get into the whole thing. Not really stretching before you work out, but like usually I would do like some kind of mobility stuff.
Sure.
But my mobility stuff was starting out with a 135-pound deadlift.
Yeah.
Do 5 of those, add some weight. And so my mobility was just exactly what I was going to be doing, but just a lightweight.
Yeah.
And my workout was over when the client walked in the door.
That's nice.
And so it was like, and all I did was deadlifts.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good workout.
I think so too.
15 minutes of deadlifts, and we'll see what you can load the bar up to. And,
yeah, for sure.
And some people call it but it wasn't like I was like, all right, I have 15 minutes. I can do these 8 different exercises or these 15 different things. I'll go from this circuit. And no, deadlift. That's it.
Yeah.
So it's like convincing them. It's like, just trust me. It's like, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
If you think what I can do is impressive, this is how it's done. Strong first hat. Like, there's 5 techniques for level 1. You're going to be really good at them, and then you have that foundation to build from. So
yeah,
and I think I've lost clients because of not having the variety, but ones that have stuck with me, it's like, yeah, swings and do lots of swings. Why? Well, if you're just trust me.
Yeah.
It's like you develop power. It's like there's a lot of good habits from it, but if you're trying to like burn fat, build power, the way you look, like swings,
it's great for the
tough
hips.
to beat. Tough to beat swings.
Absolutely.
And
especially for those who don't like to run, It's
yeah.
great aerobic exercise too.
I'm not a big fan of running.
Yeah. Nothing against running for all you runners out there. I do have an enormous amount of respect for what you do, and I do dabble with from time to time to run, and I can. At my peak, I think I was running 10, 11 miles. I was probably about 25 pounds lighter at that point. It's probably 5 or 6 years ago. I was training for the mini, and then hurt my back doing some kettlebell stuff that I shouldn't have been. I was going a little sloppy technique, and hurt my back for the week before the race. So that was kind of my exit out of ever trying to complete a race. But yeah, it's great. I mean, clients just need to be able to feel that trust level with their trainer, and I think that can be reciprocated. And giving them, I feel like every now and again I try to give them an option, like, hey, would you like to do the rower or would you want to do jump rope?
Yeah.
And give them some sort of ownership and in the training session, because I know that's just how autonomy is established sometimes in that trainee relationship. So yeah, I feel like there's a reason why the most successful power lifters, weightlifters, bodybuilders, even and other trainers, they're successful because they stick to the basics. Zach Evanesh would talk about that quite a bit. Just do the basics, and do them well, and you'll develop that strength and dense musculature that people are after.
Yeah, the basics are the advanced stuff.
Yeah,
is what, like Scott Sonnen, if you're familiar with him. I heard him say that, and I don't know if he was quoting someone else, but I was like, I like that. It's like martial art. He's like, most of the time you see people winning with the basics. Every once in a while you'll see somebody in the UFC winning with fancy stuff.
Yeah.
But most of the time people are winning with the basics. And it's the same thing with the lifting. Here's like just a couple things to focus on, become excellent at it. And then when you want to play around, and I do a bunch of different stuff with the kettlebells or
I see you do some juggling
movements, and so it's like, yeah, I like doing all that stuff too. But it's like at first, just I've had people show up to a class for their first time, and the first day was kettlebell juggling.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And they were able to get some of it, and I was like trying to explain to them, like, normally this isn't first day stuff, this is advanced, but this is where we are, and they go outside right and out in the mulch here, and they were able to do stuff, and it's like,
it's great.
Like they have like this concept that they need to start as something real simple, which okay, yeah, but if you can like figure out the hip hinge, figure out how to make it float, if you can get a couple juggles in, then you're going to understand some other stuff better. So then I was like wondering, at some of the times, like I wonder if they, sometimes should start off like that, or maybe, it's probably not really the best idea, but it at least got me thinking when I could see these other people that are, maybe they come in athletically. I was training one guy, he's a trainer now.
Yeah.
Real strong guy, weighed well over 200 pounds.
Yeah.
And he had some lessons from me, and he was going to be a trainer, and so I was working with him on some stuff. And him and his wife came to one of my workshops.
Yeah.
And here's this guy, he's about to be a trainer, big, strong guy. His wife was not.
Yeah.
She wasn't really into fitness stuff, but she was coming to check it out.
Yeah.
And she was out, and she was getting the juggling done, and he wasn't.
Oh, no.
So you see like this big muscly guy is just struggling.
Wow.
And she's just like flipping this kettlebell around all over the place.
That's awesome.
And she had never even touched one before.
Wow.
So it was kind of funny how that worked.
Yeah.
So like with the TRX, like what was it that you were like, what were you surprised about? You said you kind of had low expectations for it, and then you were surprised.
Yeah, for sure.
What was it that was surprising you about the TRX?
I think, it wasn't so much the exercises. And there were some cues and some little subtle changes that I immediately made to my techniques, like an inverted row, those kinds of things. Just some minor technique changes, which I'm always open for those kinds of things. But mainly, just hearing from fitness professionals that are more established and more experienced and better, than I am. And I wanted to learn and just be under their tutelage, I guess, for a day and just ask questions. And it was cool, just kind of just hearing their perspective and some advice, just general advice on how to be successful as a trainer and just, the inner workings of that kind of dynamic of working with clients and helping I was asking tons of questions about, okay, I have a client that has a hard time learning this, and this. Can you help me? And they did, the instructors were top notch. And, it wasn't just exclusively TRX for the second course that I did. It was a functional training course. A lot of the exercises I had already learned, like they did some sandbag stuff, which I did through my sandbag certification, through Ultimate Sandbag Company, DVRT training with Josh Henkin. He's excellent. He's a good resource.
What's DVRT stand for?
Dynamic Variable Resistance Training. And that had a really hard physical test. I think I told you about that. It had an 80-pound sandbag, clean and press. For me, it was challenging. Maybe not for everyone, but it was 80 pounds, and you had to do 40 reps in 5 minutes or less, which doesn't sound that bad, but there's no groove to it. And, which I wasn't used to, right? With kettlebell training, I could get the groove to it and get my rhythm. With sandbag, you have to have the technique down. But it was also, a lot of it was just power. You consistently generating power. And I felt like after the first few reps, my power generation just dropped considerably. And then it's just like start to compensate and start to... Training for that test was really hard mentally on me because I would get so close to passing. I had to do video. They sent in a video, and I get so close to passing, and I would just gas out, or my shoulder would start to bother me, those kinds of things. And then taking that test, I didn't have any expectation of passing it. Every time I would do it, I would film it just in case I passed. Yeah. I was like, we'll see what happens. And sure enough, I got it, and I was just so excited, But
so each time it's starting from a dead hang. So like that's what you're saying is there's no groove, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So where a kettlebell, you have like the backswing or
I know what you mean.
Whatever, so you can there's momentum and there's like a cadence and but with the sandbag it's just plops straight to the ground.
Yeah.
And you're starting over. Do you touch the ground in between?
Yeah, you had to touch the ground in between, and then for the press it had to be over the crown of your head. So you had to have good shoulder mobility, which is something that I struggle with just from doing too much bodybuilding training. Having tight shoulders and those kinds of things. So that was challenging. Yeah, I think that kettlebell training is kind of like jazz, It's very fluid and smooth. Yeah. And then sandbag training was like heavy metal, like bang, like off the ground. You got to get it and just figure out that technique well enough that you could last the 40 proper executed repetitions in the 5 minutes. I thought for sure, I was like, oh, I can do this in 4 minutes. I started training I tried doing Tabata to train for it, but that was going too fast to get 5 repetitions in 20 seconds. Because it's the amount of time that it takes to get the thing up, get it loaded on your fists, and then press it cleanly overhead, get it back down without destroying your shoulders. I was like, I can't keep this pace up, you know. I think I just ended up, my brother-in-law, who's also a trainer, who I have trained me from time to time. He's awesome. Adam, shout out to you, Adam Tim. And he said, you should just do sets of 10. And I was like, 10? Man, that's a lot. But sure enough, he was right.
That was the magic number, huh?
It was, yeah. I just had to do sets of 10, take a little breaks here when I needed it, when I started to get gassed, and it got me through, and I actually got 43 repetitions. I had threw in some extra ones in case some of them weren't proper. But
yeah. So when you clean it, you said you're pushing up with your fist, so the weight is on your fist.
Yeah.
So you're not pushing up the strap, you're pushing up the...
Yeah. And the weight gets shifted around, so it's uneven. So one hand might have like 50 pounds on one, the other one will have 30 pounds. It's just totally random. That's why they call it dynamic variable resistance, because it shifts. And I would say, like, you take any CrossFitter or someone who does Olympic lifting, and, you know, on an intermediate level, not anything too advanced, but you take that person and give them a 100-pound sandbag that's loose on the inside, like a big bag, it's not tightly fit, and you say, okay, clean and press this X number of times or whatever. They would struggle, you know, because that technique is a whole new ballgame. But it's a great way, and I love that system for more than just, you know, those types of exercises, but from what it's taught me about how the body works and the sling systems that I'm still learning, and how to apply that with clients, and just the amount of educational resources that they're putting on the market now are top notch. And so I would recommend anyone check out Ultimate Sandbag, I think it's .com or ultimatesandbagtraining.com. You'd have to double check, but Josh Henkin is the founder, and his wife Jessica Bento is a physical therapist, and she also has great training experience, and she does a lot of great stuff integrating physical therapy and personal training and physical training. So I've learned a lot about just movement and how to help clients be able to move better and train smarter, and to help prevent injuries. And that's one thing I wanted to talk to you about, actually, because I am a bonehead when it comes to training. I was thinking about this today. I was like, if I was my own trainer, I would probably fire myself, because I've hurt myself far too many times. And I wanted to talk to you about it and kind of get your opinion, like, when it comes to our own training, like, because you mentioned sticking with the basics, which is what I do as well, but I like to mix it up at times, do some different exercises to kind of keep it interesting. But injuries. My back has habitually been bad. I think I've had x-rays done, and they say I have, you know, lateral curve I shouldn't have in a couple different places. And actually Steve Maxwell, I took one of his seminars, and he kind of checked out my posture, my natural, like, curvature in my spine. He was like, well, that probably happened when you were in utero, and it's nothing you could do, but your body's adapted, you know, and you can still do stuff. So I'm like, okay, that's cool, but it's kind of prevented me from really being able to dig in on certain exercises that I'd like to do. Or the other day I was actually doing some kettlebell stuff, and my hip fell kind of out of place. Then sure enough, I had my wife push on it on my back, and it popped back into place. And she's like, oh, it was intense, man. And like, the muscles around there are a little sore, but I kind of had to rest the rest of the week. But how do you deal with all those things with your own training, like with injuries and like mentally, physically, you know, all that?
Yeah, as for so I mentioned my shoulder injury that I had when I took my Strong First certification. Mm-hmm. And so it's like I'm doing all this kettlebell stuff, but I think what was messing up my shoulder was jumping rope. And it took it a couple, because I felt like the tendons or whatever getting really inflamed. Yeah. It was super sore, where I could barely press anything. Like I said, even at the certification, there were times I couldn't even press 35 pounds one time, and I had to press 53 5 times, which would normally be not a big deal. My left arm, no big deal at all. My right arm, 0, and I ended up doing it. But
I think I've seen you do bottoms up presses with that much.
Yeah, and I've pressed strict, I think, like 107.
That's amazing.
With one arm, I weigh like 165.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, sounds crazy to me too. And I think like a push press, I could probably claim 123.
Yeah.
But my elbow might have not been quite locked out.
Yeah.
But it was really, really close. And if you like watch strongman competitions, the way their elbow locks out and they count it, it's like that's about what mine was doing. Where it's like maybe not 100%, but it was pretty close.
Yeah.
But 114 for sure, legit witnesses, all that stuff.
That's awesome.
So once I figured out that it was actually jumping rope, because I would jump rope for maybe like 12 minutes straight or something like that. And then, but it wouldn't be like immediately apparent, but like afterwards I was like, okay, it's just something, maybe I wasn't going in reverse enough or whatever it was. I thought my form was fine. I didn't think I was moving in my shoulders too much. But like once I figured it out, I haven't really jumped rope since.
Wow.
So, and my shoulders are pretty much fine. So I think like prevention is like figure out what it is. You know, might sound simple. Like figure out what it is that's causing the problem.
Yeah.
And either like eliminate it or come up with a variation. So for like you mentioned, like the bottoms up press. So if you're getting like to a point on your pressing where like maybe you're trying to go heavy, but maybe your form is going wrong or something like that. If you do the bottoms up press, which a lot of people probably know what that is, but it's pretty much like instead of the ball of the kettlebell resting on your forearm, the ball of the kettlebell is up, so you're using your grip strength and what they call like steering strength to press the bell up. So your weight's going to drop some, but I think if you just work the bottoms up press a lot, then your regular press will go up because it's like forcing you to have these good mechanics.
Yeah.
And so I think coming up with like that correct groove. So like maybe my elbow will be more towards the anterior than yours. Maybe yours feels better externally rotated a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of times these high reps that gets people. And so like with stuff like deadlifts or I know it's popular with like CrossFit, and I think CrossFit has gotten better. I've never actually been to a CrossFit class, but I've watched quite a bit of it, and I have a buddy of mine that does CrossFit, and his technique looks really good. His Olympic lifting and I think when they were doing like these super high reps, because they were known for their high injury rate too.
Right.
So I think when we get up to, if you're wanting to do something that's the most advanced people are saying you should not do high reps, like your Olympic weightlifter that's actually competing is probably not going to say, yeah, it's a good idea to do 30 of them in a minute.
Yeah.
It's like, do 2 or 3, wait a few minutes, do a couple more. That's going to bring your safety way up. And when you're working on endurance, you can do something else. Like the kettlebell, you're going to use a lot lighter weight, but you can go a lot higher reps and stuff like the swings, clean and jerk. It has that relaxation phase. And for I forget what the last thing I was going to say, but yeah, so like dropping the reps or maybe completely eliminating something like I did the jump rope, and then just like keep studying why. So it's like if you're like for like the back stuff, whenever somebody like starts talking about back problems, I usually recommend Dr. Stuart McGill.
Yeah, the back mechanic. I took it out of the library right after you recommended it.
Oh, yeah. His other
awesome.
one, Ultimate Back Fitness and Performance,
I think
is a lot. Do you have that one?
No.
I was going to bring it in so you could borrow it. I never brought it in.
Sorry.
I'll remember it for Tuesday.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But I usually recommend him because it makes so much sense. So to me, maybe you let something relax that shouldn't have been relaxed. Or I'm not saying maybe you did that, maybe you didn't.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
But to me, that's probably what it means. But I was asking Donnie Thompson. I never met him personally, but just on social media on Facebook, I was asking him about like deadlift form and injuries, because you'll see like, all right, well, Dr. McGill is saying, do not lift with the curved spine, or don't lift with your spine flexed. So when you see like all these pros, they're lifting with a flexed spine. So it's like, well, if you do lift with a flexed spine, know why you're doing it. And then if you're picking up like an Atlas stone, you're bracing against the stone, and don't move the spine, don't extend the spine while you're under load like that. And so I was like, okay, well, he is this way more experienced and educated than I am. So I'm going to take what he says as a fact. But then I asked like Donnie Thompson, who was the first one to get to 3,000 in powerlifting.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, and so I was asking him about deadlifts and injuries from the flexed spine. Because to me, that's how you get an injury, right? So, and he was saying that you can have perfect form, and there is going to be, at some point, when your back just says F you, and you're going to get hurt. So it's like, why did you get an injury? I can't really say.
Yeah.
But I would say, keep everything like as tight as you can for the grinds. And that's why we keep our grinds in the Strong First system, like squats, deadlift, press, at 5 reps or less. That way we can keep really tight, because if you're getting up into these super high CrossFit numbers, then I think the potential for injury like skyrockets.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's good. And I feel like like you said with CrossFit, there are some really good CrossFit coaches. I'm thinking of a few in town even, and there may be other ones that, like you said, just take a weekend course and don't really observe people's technique and don't stop them when their technique fails. Yeah, because I was just listening to some Steve Maxwell stuff recently, and he said your training should never injure you. And that's where I was like, man, after listening to that, that's what made me think, man, if I was my own trainer, I would fire myself, because I've hurt myself a few times this year, and it's just pushing myself maybe too much, or, not, kind of some of the things you're saying, tensegrity, or all those kinds of, am I really keeping everything tight, and is my technique perfect? And, yeah, I think it's a lot of good stuff to think about. So, yeah,
so
thanks.
When you did hit did injure yourself, were you going for like personal records, or what was the?
No, well, so this most recent time, it was just something silly, but I was trying to get. I had just a limited amount of time. I think I had like 30 minutes, and so I probably did like a 45-minute worth of volume in like 30 minutes, and I think I just overextended myself. I was doing like I hadn't done Turkish get-ups in some time, and so I was trying to work those back in, and I probably just should have started off with just like a bottle of water in my hand just to get the technique down perfectly, I think I started off with like 16K and then did a 24K one or something. Nothing crazy, but just probably should have eased into that. And I think maybe the last thing I did was the main thing that caused problems, just too much volume on the ab wheel rollouts. Kind of got a little overambitious with that. I just thought 100 sounded cool. So, broken down into sets, of course, but, a short amount of time, I think that could have just kind of contributed to that factor. But just, I think one thing that I'm learning more, too, is I've mentioned Steve Maxwell a couple of times already, but I'm trying to look at someone who has been training for 50 years. What are they saying?
Yeah.
Because I would like to imagine that in 50 years, I would like to be, not 50 years, I'm 35. So in 30 years, I would be in that position, But if I had to be honest with myself, it's like, well, I don't know if I would be. I may be the older guy in the checkout line at Meijer that's hunched over because I messed up my back too many times trying to lift too much or do too many reps. But I just downloaded his book. It's like Time Static Contractions, talking about isometric training, and I'm just trying to find maybe something to supplement my current training with. And I'm experiencing some tendonitis in my elbow. Like I mentioned, I'm not really overhead pressing right now just due to some shoulder mobility issues. I'm trying to lay off of those things, but I'm trying to learn some more techniques, different things that I can integrate into my training that will limit the joint damage, but also to just maintain what I have. Because he was saying at some point you're going to stop making gains. I'm closing in on 40 in about 5 years or less, and he said about 40 you stop making gains. So I'm like thinking, okay, so I've got 4.5 years then to go. But he said the main thing is you want to hold on to what you have, and how strength is the main component that will help us be more efficient in our movement. Like if you get tired going up 5 flights of stairs, it's not your cardio that's the problem, is that you have weak hips and glutes and legs. If you had stronger, more efficient legs, then you wouldn't use as much oxygen, basically, and get wore out. So it's just fascinating, some of the stuff. But I was just curious what you thought about isometric training. Have you had any experience with that?
Some, yeah. I have a book from the library now, and I had one, like the earlier edition a long time ago, called Static Contraction Training, or Max Contraction Training or something like that.
Yeah.
And in like 2000, like it wasn't too long after when I got into training. It's like 1999, 2000, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, well, I'm going to see what I can do. I'm trying to remember the gym I was at to give me the more accurate date. But it was, yeah, okay, I remember now. Yeah, it was when I was like very first training, and I started getting, I think his name might have been Little. I could be wrong on the name, but you pretty much, like, let's say I can bench press 265 pounds, which happens to be the best I've done.
Yeah,
but
that's good.
Maybe I'll set up the squat rack, and I'll unrack maybe 400, and I'm just holding it there. I'm not trying to. I might have like an inch of movement or something like that, and then put it down. And then I was doing. So when I did my test on it, because I was like keeping track of my progress, and this is a long time ago. We're going back almost 20 years. But I tested my bench press, leg press, which I was actually using a Smith machine for my leg press. So I was like laying on a bench, laying on a bench and pressing the bar up.
Yeah.
And
do people look at you funny when you did that in the gym?
Yeah, they like see you loading up this like kind of skinny guy putting 5 times his body weight on the bar.
You get that wiry strength, man.
Yeah, but I think I tested just a few things, and some of it got stronger. I think my actual bench press got stronger. I might have even been using the Smith machine for the bench press. Now that I think about it,
sure.
Because with that much weight and the equipment I had available at the time, I think that was what I was doing. I think it was all on the Smith machine.
It's probably the safest option.
Yeah. So it was like, and putting 400 on the bench press was probably at least what I was doing. And so I think like in some ways I gained, but then I might have like tested it with like squats or something. So maybe I was working on my leg press as a static thing, but then I tested to see if it made my like free squat go up or something like that.
Sure.
And it didn't.
Okay.
But I think my bench press did or something like that.
Yeah.
But I did get that book again recently, and I haven't really went through it much again, but sometimes I will do like a very short range deadlift. Maybe it'll be from just above my knees. Maybe it's like halfway up my thigh, and I'm just lifting it a couple inches, and I've loaded the bar up to over 600 pounds like that. very short range.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it's like I think because stronger is stronger, right? Mm-hmm. So if I'm able to like hold that weight and I'm really working on my full body tension, it should transfer to other things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like, what was your experience with it? Have you been doing it, or?
So I was reading this book. I read it all in one sitting because when I get anything to do about training, I just pretty much go into my zone and no one can get to me. Yeah, I want to finish it. It's only 60 pages, but it was interesting enough for me to almost, I wouldn't say revamp my training, but I want to see how it'll help just with some of my pulling. I haven't been able to do very many pull-ups lately either because of the tendonitis and the elbow has been really bothering me.
Yeah, I got a thing too that's been keeping me from pull-ups. Yeah,
it's sad, man, because I love pull-ups. It was a mainstay in my training for about 20 years. And so I've been trying to work around that. I started doing some stuff at a local Planet Fitness, just doing some machines and those kinds of things. And I just ended up getting bulkier and heavier. So that's going to make it even harder for me to do more pull-ups. So I had to kind of go back and stop doing that. But yeah, I'm going to try it. I bought, he recommends using a forearm forklift. It's a moving strap that you see movers use when they're lifting heavy appliances or those kinds of things. And I just ordered it. As soon as it gets here, hopefully on Tuesday, I'm going to start doing some of the movements. It has different loops that you can put your arms or hands through, or you can even do isometric contractions for the lower body, like a wall sit. You can do like a hip bridge. With the way he describes it and pictures it in the book, I hopefully will be able to follow it. So I'm interested in seeing how that goes. And
so there's no weight. You're just contracting against yourself then. So you're pushing into the strap.
Yeah, I'm curious. I don't know how it's going to go. I have my reservations about it. But generally what Steve Maxwell says, I try to at least keep an open mind, because I trust him as a source. And I'm just, like I said, if I'm continuing to injure myself doing too much volume, perhaps with the kettlebells or sandbag or whatever it might be, then I maybe just need to back off that stuff for a season and maybe a couple weeks, maybe a month, and just try the isometric stuff, see how I look and feel. Because his thing is that you're going from one exercise to the next fairly quickly. So he does a 90 seconds under tension. So you'll do the first 30 seconds.
That's a long time.
It is a long time. I tried it with like just a chest crusher. Like you place your hands like in front of you and just palms together, and you just press into your hands together, squeezing your chest. I tried doing that for 90 seconds. I literally was sore later that evening. I felt like I'd done a bunch of chest flies or something. It was fascinating, but I was like, man, this is tough. I would imagine it'd be similar, not the exact same, but similar to how bodybuilders like prepare for shows by doing their posing routines, flexing and spending all that time contracting their muscles, and that's a workout, I would imagine. But
yeah, that is a good thing. Bud Jeffries, are you familiar with Bud Jeffries?
No.
He's I first came to know of him through Pavel's books.
Mm-hmm.
He's squatted pretty sure he's done 1,000-pound squat,
wow.
And at least 900 starting from parallel.
Wow.
So most people start standing, load the bar, go down, and then back up and call that the squat. Well, it's harder if you start at the bottom. Mm-hmm. So he's done, that was part of his thing. He does a lot of he'll carry some 200-pound rock while he's dragging a sled.
Jeez. And
doing all sorts of stuff. And
that's amazing.
He's a super strong guy.
Yeah.
And his son, who unfortunately passed away in a motorcycle accident, but even when his son Noah Jeffries, when he was, I think at 15 years old, he bent, I don't know if you're familiar with the Ironmine red nails.
I think I've seen those, yeah.
Yeah, they're extremely hard to bend. You're like a world-class bender.
Yeah.
So his son at 15 years old was bending steel at a world-class level.
That's amazing.
But he does a lot of isometric stuff also, and he has. I haven't actually purchased his DVDs or curriculums, but you can kind of get a good idea of what he's doing with it. So
Yeah.
I can see how it could for sure help tighten things up, because instead of it'd be really safe. It's safer than, like the kind of static contraction training I was talking about, where you have a crazy amount of weight, where if something goes wrong, I mean, it could be potentially very dangerous.
Yeah.
But if you're just kind of going against yourself, then I could see how it would just like help you tighten up more and more. And I wonder if it would be hard to gauge.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Progress.
Yeah.
And like,
he says if that's what you need, he's like, this may not be for you. So I'm like, maybe this won't be for me because I like to know I'm making progress. Or
I'm sure you could feel it internally though, like whether if you're contracting tighter, and if you're going, especially if you're going for that long. And
I think it's 50% effort for 30 seconds. Then the next 30 seconds is about 70% effort, and the last 30 seconds is 100% effort. And I watched him do this with some clients, and I mean, it's just, they're like quivering, But he's like, relax your breathing, Relax your face, no grunting, no grimacing, don't strain your neck, just keep everything else relaxed except for the targeted area. So I'm like, man, and that's when I tried that one exercise, just reading the book. I was like, yeah, I could see how they'd be freaking out, because it was intense. And I only did it probably for a minute, but.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I think that you can be completely, everything tensed up from below the neck, but the neck up, keep that loose, and your face from doing that. And part of my testing that I just have testing for kids right now for kettlebell stuff. But part of the test, it's written on the test, stoicism is what we're looking for, not drama. So I don't want to see like, the gritting and bearing down. I want to see you doing stuff that's hard, but your face looks like it's no big deal. And then, because that, just the skill of that is going to transfer into how you deal with all kinds of your life, but it's also blood pressure stuff. And there's, because under that that amount of time for that amount of pressure for that amount of time, blood pressure is going to go up a lot.
Oh, for sure.
So that sounds like a really cool way to go, and I bet you would be able to feel things start to connect because you're having the time without the risk of a weight crashing down on you.
And he theorizes, and I think it's pretty well established that, for example, like in a squat, you're in your strongest position closer to the top of the squat, and he's essentially trying to train you in the weakest portion of each lift. For a side delt raise, you're in the lower portion of the delt raise, trying to push up against that. And I'm kind of nervous to try that one because just how hard it looks. But yeah, it's an interesting method, and I was just curious about your experience with isometrics, just because I trust your opinion, and I wanted to kind of see, if you had any experience with it, and it sounds like you have. And yeah, I mean, I'll try for a month, man. I'll let you know how it works out,
Yeah. If you bring it into the gym, I'd like to check it out too. I like the idea for sure. And I've done some things like just how long can you hang from a bar?
Oh yeah.
And how can you hanging from one arm, hang from one arm and hold a kettlebell in the other.
I seen you do that.
And
that's crazy.
Just that stuff. But I could see like really if you're like in the squat, I could see how it can. Like maybe if you go for like okay, just for a month or 2 months, I'm just gonna do this strap isometric, let my injuries heal. Then maybe when you go back to regular squats, maybe it's not gonna be, maybe your numbers aren't gonna go up right away. Like, so maybe you're not gonna like go back and like, oh, I added 50 pounds to my squat without ever putting a bar on my back. But maybe you're like almost where you were before. Yeah. But now you have like these, now I feel this better. I feel these muscles changing, activating this firing pattern.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to get to. This firing pattern. And now I can be more conscious of this firing pattern and make it all better. So I think I can see how it would help out, make it safer and stronger over time.
Yeah, and I like the idea of minimalistic training too. I would love to be a minimalist. I really would. We're about to have our fourth kid, and I'm not sure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank
I didn't
you.
realize that.
Yeah. Sorry to tell you on our podcast, but I forgot to mention. So it's
That's
like,
awesome.
Thank you. So it's like with kids comes a lot of stuff, as you know, and I would love to be more minimalistic, and just the concept of that. And we are fairly minimalistic, but we live in like 1,000 square foot house, and there's like, let me see, there's five of us.
Wow.
Yeah, I had to think about that, and a dog, regular sized dog, and then soon to be 6. So it's certainly a part of something I've always wanted to experience is just real simple living, intentional living, and training is part of my life, and it's an integral part of my life. It's one of the things I look forward to most, and I've even started training no music at home.
That's my favorite way.
Dude, I just stumbled upon that by accident, and I love it. And I just told another trainer that I do that. They're like, how do you stand it? I was like, how did I stand it before?
Yeah.
I don't want to be distracted from what I'm doing, because it's like, that's my quiet, alone time. And I'm able to focus more on, am I doing this properly? Am I tense where I need to be tense? Am I, mobile where I need to be mobile? And really enjoying that time. And the time goes by really fast, and mentally I'm clearer too when I'm done. But, I'm figuring these things out, I guess.
Yeah, it's weird how it kind of works. I think McGill is really big on not playing music because you need to be concentrating on what you're doing. You don't want any kind of distraction. Mm-hmm. And when I'm doing my classes here, I kind of joke around about it a little bit, but it's like I'm playing a lot of times it might be like Native American drums and like hippie music. I mean, like Pink Floyd comes on, and we have like Jimi Hendrix stuff, and
yeah, that's awesome.
And so I'll play music like that, and sometimes it's pretty mellow, and then I'll have, or it'll be like from like music from India and this more like serene kinds of stuff. And I always joke around, like one of the clients, Eleanor, she'll ask like if I'll play Rocky or something instead, which I have Rocky also. I use Spotify, and I have a playlist that has over 400 songs on it for this class playlist, and it's mostly like hippie music, Native American from India, all this kind of stuff. And then I started making like this separate one that's like more for her with like the Rocky stuff. And but it's like, if I'm by myself, I prefer music is off. Yeah. And but sometimes it can be fun too. And like when I'm teaching the kids classes also, like I'll put, like a lot of times with the kids class, we usually start off with animal movements. Mm-hmm. And I might teach a few, and then they can do like whatever they want. They can put the animal movements together how they want. They can make them up. They'll each take turns like telling everybody what we're all going to do. And then so sometimes I'll have like the music on. I was like, all right, now go with the flow of the music. Or they'll do even if it's just like a squat. So it's like, if you have like a music with like a 4 count, and so like on the way down you're going down for 4, and then you raise back up at the next 4, or something like that. So if the music is on, I might use it in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
it's intentional. Yeah, that's cool.
But the pop music that plays at like the gym, it's like drives me bonkers. Oh man.
Yeah, I try to tune it out as much as best I can. But
yeah. Well, what were you working out to? Like
previous to that?
Yeah, like when you were playing music that you wanted to work out. What kind was it?
Well, in my garage is where I do most of my training, and I would put on like Metallica or some of the more heavy metal stuff and that kind of thing. Just trying to get pumped up. And a lot of times I would play. I don't know if you're familiar, but there's this YouTube channel called Strength Wars. It's based out of the Czech Republic, I believe.
I know
quote me on that, but
I've seen it.
Yeah. So those guys, I mean, they're just unreal. Just the amount of strength that these guys have, these competitors, and the endurance that they have, and they're, doing these feats, these workouts that are just insane. Like 400-pound squats for 10 reps, and then you go and you do bench press with like 300 pounds for 10 reps or whatever the count and reps. But it was just amazing, and I watched that while I'm working out to pump me up, And I did get better at deadlifts and stuff like that from being motivated by those guys. I'll be honest, and but I think there's a time for everything, and I needed that then, and and for now I'm trying to be a bit more intentional in my movement and try to avoid injury, like we talked about, and just maintain my fitness. And because with working in fitness, just as well as I do, man, this is our machine, right? Like,
yeah.
When I put my hip out, I don't know if it was dislocated. It probably wasn't dislocated, but it was out of its alignment enough that it was causing me to hunch over, and I couldn't really do much. I still did row, though. I rowed 5,000 meters with my hip out because I'm stubborn and I do stupid stuff like that. I was only 10 seconds off my personal best, so I thought that was pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm not easily deterred, but I'm trying to teach my class, I'm like, okay, and this is the next exercise. Really simple things were like winding me because my body just wasn't right. But it's our machine, it's an essential part of what we do. And so I'm like, okay, don't get hurt. Don't be an idiot. It's like Dwight Schrute from The Office. He says about Michael Scott, the best advice you ever gave me was don't be an idiot. He says, whenever I'm about to do something, I ask myself, would an idiot do this? And if they do, I don't do that thing. So that's kind of like my life advice that I try to live by now.
Yeah, that's good. That's kind of what I'm trying to do too, is like I'll be 39 this month.
Nice.
And it's like, all right, so what am I really trying to do? It'll be about almost exactly a year from now. I'll be going for my level 2 SFG.
That's great.
I'm confident that I'll do that. I've been kind of like completely out of training for a while, but when I hurt my knee, it really slowed me down, and I heard it doing jiu-jitsu, nothing to do with training. Mm-hmm. But it kind of got me thinking, like, well, what am I doing? It's like, all right, so what's the middle path, or like what's the I want to be stronger, and like you were saying, you're looking at people that have been doing this for 50 years. Mm-hmm. There's always these young hot shots. They're 22 years old doing cool stuff, and it's like I want to do that too. It's like, well, what's that 60-year-old guy talking about that's been doing it he used to be a 20-year-old hot shot, and now he's 60. What's he talking about? Mm-hmm. And I would do things like you mentioned watching Strength Wars. I remember there was a time I was watching like Conan, and the whole time I was watching Conan, I was doing dips and like the wrist roller, pumping up my forearms and doing dips the whole time.
That's intense.
And then watching Arnold slay his enemies. It's like, so it's like, what do you really want? And it's like, it's always fun to like show off strength and like kind of compete with people that are about as strong as you, or if you have somebody that's a little bit ahead of you and you're kind of chasing after them. Yeah. And it's fun and inspiring, but it's like if you hurt yourself, like then what? So and like you were saying, like with the elbow, I had like this little elbow thing too, and like holding like the Thai pads while somebody's kicking them real hard and stuff. It's like, is that messing up my elbow? And then like pulling, I was doing like pull up, and something weird happened in my elbow, and it's like, man, so it was like, oh, I just quit doing that stuff. It's like, okay, I can hang, and my bicep and elbow feel fine, so I'll just do some of that, and I'll just do completely back off. And then when I go back to it, then I'm going back to it a lot safer than it's like, it really hurts, so I'm going to tough it out. I'm a tough guy. I can handle this. Yeah. And I'll just, F the injury. I'm tougher than the injury. Yeah. It's not going to slow me down. That's the wrong thinking. It's like, I'm not... Yeah, we make our living off of fitness stuff and like being the example. It's like, so what I'm looking at is, I don't want to mess myself up. I want to keep getting better at these different things, but there's also like this middle path. It's like, I want to deadlift more. Yeah. But I'm okay with not being the deadlift champion. Right. Because to be competitive like that, the risk, it's not worth the risk to me. To somebody else, it is worth the risk, and
they're
so it
looking
makes
for
sense to
sponsorships
them.
and
Yeah,
you know,
they're making money. You got like the Eddie Hall said it almost
killed him.
killed him to deadlift 1,000 pounds or 500
kilos,
500 kilograms. Yeah,
which is crazy.
But what does that do? And he wanted to win World's Strongest Man one time.
Yeah.
And so he put himself through all that to do it. And so for him, is it worth the risk? Yeah. I want to do martial arts. And so I'm okay getting beat up a little bit. I don't want to get punched in the head a lot. I don't want to be a professional boxer and get punched in the head a lot hard by people that are really, really good at punching people in the head. That doesn't make sense to me. Somebody else, it is worth the risk.
Sure.
So it's we just kind of like got to figure out what's the right path for, like, what do you really want?
Right.
Yeah.
And I struggle with that. I'm like two different people, you know? There's the part of me that's the sensible, like, train for longevity. Like my wife would say, why don't you work out like a normal person? And she doesn't say that, but she's like, well, honey, you probably shouldn't have been doing X, Y, Z, But I'm thinking, well, why not? But, oh, yeah, this is why not. Like at the time I just decided, I'm going to hang a rope from my tree. I haven't done rope climbs in about 5 or so years. I'm just going to do some rope climbs. And I did some rope climbs and free without the feet and some with the feet. And that's when I noticed, hey, I've got some tendonitis issues because my forearms and my elbows just started burning like crazy. And, so I think the middle path that you're talking about, I think there comes a struggle with my ego,
Yeah.
And the ego is hard to tame because I want to look like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. You know what I mean? If I'm being honest, when I'm surfing Instagram, I follow all these guys, and that's pretty much the only reason I use Instagram is to be motivated, inspired.
Yeah, it's great for that.
And learn. And so for me, it's like, what am I trying to accomplish? And to answer that question honestly, I was thinking first and foremost, I want to be strong to protect my family and myself, should I ever have to. Also, just physically, being that I'm not tall. I'm up 5'9", 5'10", something like that. I used to be taller, but I guess I have spinal compression, which is cool.
Fun.
Yeah, I don't heavy back squat anymore. Let's just say that. But anyways, my end goal now, I would probably have to lean more towards doing this as long as I possibly can. I would love to be doing this when I'm 65. I had someone that I kind of have in business, mentor me with business and those kinds of things. And he said, well, do you think you'll want to be doing this when your kids are in high school? Like thinking like, you're probably going to want to be doing something else by then. I was like, well, yeah, I hope I am. And I hope I'm better at it.
Yeah.
I hope I'm really good by then, And, but yeah, it's what I want to do. And I think we're all on this journey, man. Like, how do we best express ourselves through the thing that we love? Because we love it, right? Why else would we do it? Besides the love of it, the passion for it, what it brings to us is far greater than what it takes away, in my opinion. Yeah, I may tweak my back, but what I get from it is self-confidence. I gain better perspective on overcoming hardships and different things that life has thrown at me. I've gone through some pretty good things. I've gone through some really bad things. And trying to go through the bad things with that kind of perspective of, well, I can overcome this. I'm mentally strong. I'm mentally strong enough to overcome this obstacle because I can dedicate myself to just doing what I need to do today. And that's the same with training. What do I need to do today to get better to hit my goal? And so, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes the answer is nothing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just rest day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you could have tweaked your back if you weren't training.
Right.
People that don't do all that stuff hurt their back too.
Yeah, you're right.
And it might even be worse.
Uh-huh.
So if you're trained, you're a strong guy, and good body awareness, you're fit, working out, and you have, I think it makes our recovery time better.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're this untrained person and you hurt your back, well, maybe they're going to be less conscious of why it happened. Mm. take longer to heal because they're not going to know, or they'll go to a doctor that doesn't really give them advice on how to prevent it again. Maybe they don't really know. And it's like, yeah, people get hurt anyway. So yeah, I hurt my knee training jiu-jitsu. It was like, man, that was a bummer. It shouldn't have happened, but it's like, it's all right. It's not the end of the world, and I could have hurt it doing something else.
Yeah.
And you were talking about like different people that we're looking at, and the people that you're certified by. His wife's the physical therapist, and some of my favorite ones are ones that do have that medical background of a physical therapist or something like that, and then they're able to make a bridge from that to the personal trainer who does not have medical knowledge, but we have this like practical knowledge. And so like the ones like the Gray Cook and Dr. McGill and some of these other ones that are like that, they're able to like, here's what you guys are missing, here's how you can improve this way, and they create certifications or classes that are for personal trainers. Not to make it doesn't make them a doctor,
right?
But it gives them a wider view. I think it helps us to know what is in our scope, and when we can say, you know what, pain is a really weird thing, and this might look like an obvious thing. I think I know why you're having this pain, but pain is weird. So when you say pain, that means I'm no longer qualified to talk to you about this.
Right.
So pain, you need to go to a physical therapist. It might seem like this obvious thing, you did this, doing this, and maybe we can do these things, but this is outside of my scope.
Yeah.
But having these people that understand both, like the Dr. McGill is able to like bridge this gap and help trainers to know like how to prevent things for one, with, you know, because like what are they seeing? Because the people that are already messed up are going to them. And so like besides this like static training, what other methods are you looking into as part of your middle path or whatever you're looking into?
I think some of the main things to supplement that, like I'm gonna do some body weight training like I've always done, but try to tweak my technique a little bit to avoid the problem areas. And also, I love, it sounds weird, but I love and hate to use the rower, C2 rower. I have one at the house. Of course, we got some at the gym. But I love to just go on there to really just get after it sometimes, you know. My very best, I mean, this isn't great, but I had a goal of getting to 7 minutes for a 2,000 meter. I mean, that's really hard. I didn't think it was going to be that hard. Myself and another trainer in town, we kind of had this goal to do it. And I think he got to 7 minutes, 11 seconds, and I came in just a little bit behind 7 minutes, 15 seconds. I think I had to average 300 watts of power for a full 7 minutes on that erg, which is really hard. I think I had like 289 or something like that average watts, which is like the most accurate way of getting to that goal of 7 minutes. So that was a good mental challenge, physical challenge. I dropped a bunch of body fat, which I need to do again. You know, winter was long this year, and the cookies were good. You know, so it's like I can put on. I have that kind of different build where it's like I can put on muscle pretty easily. My college roommate always hated me for that because he was a hard gainer and he would be way more dedicated in the weight room than I was. But then I would just show up after a couple weeks. I was as big as he was, and he hated me for that. And
yeah, I fall into the hard gainer category also.
Yeah, but you're strong, man. Oh man, this guy can carry like 400 whatever pounds on a trap bar, 50 feet or something. It's crazy. But yeah, so for me, it's like just trying to decrease body fat, probably lose about 10 pounds, and just maintain my health and fitness and mobility. I think I'm going to do more yoga.
I was just about to ask you about that.
Yeah, I enjoy yoga. I used to do it every day. And my back problems were pretty much gone. You know, the physical, you know, I don't know how it changed. I didn't think it changed my spine at all, but I was a lot looser through my hips and for me, that was one of the main problem areas, piriformis especially, and I have a tight psoas now, and so I'm always trying to work on that. So I'm going to reincorporate yoga, and I may end up taking some classes. I just struggle with the discipline of, like, I'll do it for a warm-up or a cool-down, but I struggle with going through poses for 20, 30 minutes. I just struggle with the mental discipline of doing that. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to go train. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. My goal for this year, the only physical goal I made for this year was to do 108 yoga classes.
That's awesome.
And I'm on pace to do that. Like January, I was way ahead of schedule in January.
Mm-hmm.
Got a late start in February.
Yeah.
And then started kind of like slacking behind. I'm still like really close to on pace. I know I can like make up for it. I might be like a couple behind, but I know that I can
catch up.
Do that. Or I'm like right on pace is what it comes out to. Where I got out of the gate like, and there was a time I was going to be a yoga teacher.
Yeah. And
I was going to sometimes 2 or 3 classes per day. I'd go in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd go and I'd stay, and if in the evening I would stay for like both classes. It might be 2 classes in a row. I'd stay for both, and then I kind of got out of it, and I was still doing some stuff on my own, and it's like, well, I was listening to like Joe Rogan, and he's doing, I think he has about the same thing. He wants to do yoga about twice a week or something like that. And he was talking about like some gym. I think he was talking about a real place, or he might have just been naming a couple of different places. Like you go in and like you look over to the right and you see all this it's like this hardcore powerlifting gym.
Yeah.
And then you go in the other door to the left into yoga studio, where there's like middle-aged women and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, they're just as hard.
Yeah.
He's like, you think that the one on the right is going to be a lot harder.
Yeah.
But you go into the one on the left. And he's like, these women are tough.
Oh, absolutely.
He's like, and you can't tell by looking.
Mm-hmm.
The one on the right looks hardcore and intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
But you try out the yoga and you try holding those poses for a long time, and it's not as easy as it looks for sure.
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
Like, were you taking classes at a studio before, or just doing your own thing?
So the main form of yoga I was doing was the Aishin's yoga through the Monkey Bar Gymnasium. I had a DVD of theirs that had 3 different levels. There's a beginner sequence, which is about 10 minutes. It hits some of the major standing poses and some of the laying poses. And the second level is, let me see, it's a partner feedback, and that's one of the unique things about Aishin's yoga is that you can do it with a partner. And let's say we're partnered up. I would go around and I would cue you, okay, make sure you're extending through the thoracic spine on this pose, and I would touch you in a certain, top of your head, reach for my hand, these kinds of things to the crown of your head. And it really helps to provide immediate feedback to really engage. And so that would be something more I'd like to get into, the partner feedback stuff. Just so I make sure I'm not just going through the motions.
Yeah. I haven't heard of. I know about like some of the cues and feedback stuff, but I haven't heard of that style of it or that name.
Yeah, it goes under. Also, I think it goes under high energy yoga. I think it's another one.
I'm not familiar with that, but it sounds cool. I like your description of it.
Yeah, and then the last one is I when I was doing it regularly, I was able to get to the warrior sequence, which I think was 20 some minutes long, and it had some of the more intense like headstand. It had back bridge, back dome for a long period of time. It had a Sphinx pose. It had a lot of the other poses that were very challenging, to work up to. So I think I have taken yoga classes. I haven't taken a ton. I probably should, because it'll force me to stay the whole time and do it, because I can't just be like, okay, well, that was good. I'm out of here.
Yeah, warmed up for my real workout.
Yeah, all right, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
But I think there's some places in town, for sure I need to check out and support. Yeah, I'm always interested in learning.
Yeah, I've been doing mine I haven't been to a class in a while.
Yeah.
But I go along to DVDs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because I was wanting I could do my own sequences and that kind of stuff. And I do plan on like designing some of my own programming. And I may even get to be a yoga teacher at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Some of what I do in my classes might look something like it sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like so maybe like you're doing like some animal movements, and then you end up in like crow pose or something like that. So imagine you're doing like frog hops.
Mm-hmm.
So you're doing like these explosive things, and then you go into a crow pose. And then you shoot your legs back out to like chaturanga or the low push-up position,
Mm-hmm.
and then you do croc hops, which are like jumping push-ups around the floor with very little extension of your arms.
Mm-hmm.
Just do like these short little power bursts and stuff, and you use your hips.
Yeah.
And then from there to like maybe like a down dog, and then like caterpillar. So then you're walking your hands out like way in front of your shoulders as far as you can, and then you walk your feet up to your hands, and then walk your hands back out, and just different stuff like that. And so we're all over the floor. We're not just like on this 2x6 mat that's somewhat restrictive. But my idea with going along with the DVDs is like, I'm just going to do what this person says, and not worry about just doing my own thing. And I'm going to do that 108 times this year.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the year, I'll figure out what's next. But I may go to some classes too. I've had, if there's been mostly on this, I've had a lot of different instructors of various sorts on here, but it's been mostly yoga instructors. I had a yoga instructor on just a little bit ago, an old friend of mine. And it's like there's like part of like just this mystery to it also. So have you got into like the yoga like philosophy, like the more esoteric parts of it, or?
I mean, I certainly I know people who have, and I haven't as much, certainly incorporating some of the more meditative aspects of it, deep breathing, but sorry, yeah, just going back. Speaking of yoga, I need to do some more yoga so I can sit a little longer. But yeah, I think it's something that I've seen benefit a lot of people, good friends of mine, be more peaceable, just calm, be present, mindful, for sure.
Yeah, that seems to be like the good like entry into it, and then some of the more esoteric stuff starts to happen sometimes without people knowing about it. Like Erin, what she was saying, Erin Parazelli, the one that did the podcast today, she learned in India, and but she's also an artist, and so when she started learning about these Kundalini experiences, she finally had the terms and explanation and word for what it was that she was experiencing when she was doing her art. So, and like that was something that she wasn't expecting, and I've had a lot of esoteric experiences myself, and
that's interesting.
But it's just weird how like why is it that this stuff like this, it's different than just stretching or something, but like if you see somebody, you can almost tell, like once you like do a fair amount of yoga, you can see somebody at the grocery store and you're like, I bet that's a yoga teacher, or I bet she does yoga or something. That they have like this calmness and this grace and this poise about them. Do you like notice that too, or are you looking at it from this different perspective?
Yeah, I can certainly tell just their vibe. I don't hate to use the word vibe, but just the way that they are different, I feel like our culture, our society is so hurried, so distracted, and I myself am guilty of that. I'm on Instagram looking at this guy squat 805 for 2 reps at 212 pounds body weight, Joe Sullivan. That guy's a beast,
Wow.
Yeah, so 4 times his body weight. And I'm distracted by that stuff a lot, But I would love to be more present, and I see people who are present. And one of my good friends is my uncle, who was my best man at my wedding. My Uncle Peter, he's very present in all circumstances he's in. And I told my wife, I'm like, you're going to love Uncle Peter. He's he's one of the best people you'll ever meet, you know. And she got to spend some time with him this last trip. We went to Ottawa and visit my family, and he was there in town for my sister's wedding and visiting from Nova Scotia. And sure enough, she was like, "You're right, Uncle Peter's amazing," you know. And just how peaceable he is, and how in tune he is with himself, his own emotions, with other people. His priorities are whoever he's with at that moment. He's an artist. So he teaches digital animation. His wife, I believe, teaches yoga. I know she's involved with yoga, and they have a center similar to White Pines, and that they helped kind of found in Truro, Nova Scotia, like a mindfulness center. And it's a little different, obviously, but so to encourage yoga and other different arts and cultural things to help people just be more present, be less distracted. And I can see that in people, and I want to be that, and I'm drawn to that. I have friends, most of my friends, my wife kind of jokes, she says, "You have a thing for guys with long hair." You know, because my Uncle Peter's got this long, red, curly hair. It's beautiful, you know. And then a lot of my other good friends, I played music for a good while, you know, professionally, and that's how I made my living. And, you know, hanging around with those guys. And one of my good friends, Joseph, he's got long hair, and I'm like, you know what, you're right, you know. And there's this other guy. I met this other guy that I'm drawn to as well. His name's Larry Mitchell, and he's long hair, you know. It's my thing. It's just because they are more comfortable with themselves. They're more their true self. You know, they're not masked like a lot of people are in this society that we encounter on a day-to-day basis. They're just themselves, and I'm drawn to that. So,
yeah, that's interesting that you say that. For the first time since high school, I started growing my hair back out. It's not very long right now, but it used to be like down to my chest. And
it's awesome.
When I started jiu-jitsu, it was too much in the way. It would get pulled, and it was just used against me.
Yeah.
So cut it all off, and I had really short hair, you know, usually cutting like 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch for the whole time. And then just recently started growing it back out again. I don't know how long it'll get. I keep going back and forth from I'm just going to let it grow to I'm just going to shave it all off again.
Yeah.
But so you were talking about the community center, and one of the things that you were talking about before the podcast was the need for community. So what we didn't really get into it too much before the podcast, but what does community mean to you, and why is it important?
I think that I'm learning the importance of what it means to be a neighbor. And I mean, I was raised in suburbia in Canada, Ottawa, Canada, out in the suburbs. And it was, I mean, we knew our neighbors, but we weren't particularly at least I wasn't particularly close with many of them. But for me, now as an adult, having lived in like a part of Indianapolis that was more suburban, then moving down to a place that's more of a soft urban area in Broad Ripple, I'm noticing how much more fulfilled I am having access to community. And for me, that means like people that I'm getting to know and to let into my life that otherwise they would just be objects like passing by, going into their garage, and I just wave at them when they take their trash out, that kind of thing. But getting involved in people's lives, knowing their story, getting to know them and their families, and having our kids play together. You know, my wife will babysit our neighbors' kids from time to time, vice versa, you know, and just having my workplace being in the same neighborhood where we live is so amazing. I can ride my bike to work, you know, without getting saddle sore. Yeah, it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
And for the first time in like a very long time, maybe ever, I just feel like, man, I'm exactly where I need to be. And I'm being surrounded. I'm starting to open myself up because, you know, everyone has wounds that they carry from previous experiences of being hurt, you know, either from work or relationships. And I carry both of those things. And I was very more sort of guarded, you know. But now opening myself up to people and learning about them and caring about them and trying to help them when they're down or when they're needing, something, a word of encouragement, whatever. It's been so amazing. And it's cool. I'll be pulling into the gym, and one of my clients, I'll just randomly drive by, honk their horn, be like, hey, or I'll run into them at the grocery store, or, I'll run into people I know. And it's so amazing just to have that support, because I feel like we as Americans are so egocentric. We're so isolated, I guess. I can't remember the word I was trying to remember earlier, but we feel like we can just get by on our own. But that's not true. We're part of something bigger than ourselves. We're part of a collective of people just like ourselves that need one another to really be operating at our most efficient level for relationships, for work, for our own health, for vitality, mindfulness, spirituality, all those things. We need each other, and yeah.
Yeah, it's like when most people have probably heard that, like, babies can die from not just malnutrition, but a lack of touch. And like they'll have like failure to thrive, and it's like if they don't have like a mom or dad or someone filling that spot to care for them, they don't do so well. And I think that probably does carry on for our whole lives like this. So there was a lot of times, I guess I had a good amount of friends in high school, and some of them, interestingly enough, I've just recently, like Erin, who did the podcast earlier today, I haven't seen her since high school.
Wow. And
it was just like, just go to her house, and it was just like, that's Erin, and we're, and she's been around the world, and I've done all these different things, but still like the same person, just different, more experience now, and this thing where it's like, and people want to tell their story. When I used to drive a cab, and that was one thing that I really learned from driving a cab. I drove a cab for 7 years, and I learned that people want to tell their stories. Sometimes a lot of what I did was medical transportation, and sometimes I would pick somebody up from the hospital, and I was the first person that they were told. They just found out they had cancer.
Wow.
Or I hear a lot of people's just a lot of really bad stuff. Guy's mom got murdered by his brother.
Wow.
Guy killed his own mom. He was like messed up on some kind of drugs, and
that's terrible.
And the guy that I knew got there, just happened to get home or get to their place and see it like just right at the end of it. And by the time he was able to stop it, it was too late. And it's like, man, but people want to tell. And he was crying. He was this grown, strong man, crying in my car, just spilling his guts to me. And old people, they want to tell their story. And young people want to tell me what they want to do. And people want to get their story out. So a lot of what this podcast is all about is like, who are you? Why are you here? And I almost kind of put that in the description. I think most people would see that as, the book, kind of the double entendre of how I mean it. Yeah. Almost like a joke at first, but then it's like, no, seriously. Yeah. Who are you? Why are you here? And I'm not here to be just like you. A lot of what we do overlaps, but just, and what I was wanting to do also for what I'm going to do, I'm going to get it this weekend is. So a big thing at White Pine here is storytelling. At the end of my kids' classes, they read a story. I bring in books. I got a bunch of books from the library, Native American, from India. I have books that have like ancient stories from all around the world, and they can read them in about 5 minutes or so. And they really like that. Sometimes I'll read the stories too, but it's usually one of the kids that reads them. And Matt, the owner, he tells a lot of stories. He has his memorized, and he knows a lot of great stories. But what I was going to do is I'm going to get a binder, and I'm going to get paper, and I'm going to ask everybody that comes here, the teachers here, and all the students, no matter what their age is, write a story, you know, and I was gonna write out like just some ideas. I mean, you can write whatever kind of original story you want, or pretty much original.
Sure.
And I was gonna like kind of describe what archetypes are, because there's gonna be kids reading this thing that maybe they understand archetypes, but they don't know that they understand archetypes.
Right.
And so I was thinking of like, okay, you're 9 years old. Imagine you're 100 years old. Tell your life story.
Mm-hmm.
Or how were you a hero when you were 30 years old? I know you're only 9, but how are you a hero when you're 30 years old? Or imagine it's 1,000 years from now and someone is telling your story. What is that story?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, stories are just huge. And I'm, of course, we all as kids, we kind of like know that we want to be read a story before we go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
We like story time. We get story time at school, and then somehow I mean, I guess we have literature in high school and stuff, but it seems different. It seems like separate. So I like what you were saying about hearing people's stories and the amount of community, because there was that time like I was kind of like more like the lone wolf. I don't really, especially like when I quit drinking and like smoking weed and stuff, which I normally wouldn't even mention to people. I did in the last podcast, but that was about 6 years ago now.
Yeah, that's great.
And there were other times where I quit, but I mean, this time was like
you were done,
permanent. Yeah. And I had this thing happen where I think got to know, like, I think she was like an angel or something like that, like literally something like that. But then like I see like, and then working here at White Pine Wilderness Academy, where community is in front of us, like right in front of us, there's a paper and it says community events, and it's. Then I look over to my right and I see the word inspiring. Like that runner, he's like a famous runner, but he actually is local here.
No kidding.
But anyways, it's like, so like we look around, like what do we see? Community events, inspiring, and then so like I'll just kind of like look around, like what kind of signals are we getting? Like the idea of the community is really huge, and as I get to know like more of the people here, and I've had several people that are teachers here on the podcast, and you know, it's like people are kind of like understanding more and more, and maybe it's always been known, but I thought that was interesting. It was like one of the things that you were wanting to talk about was community and how important it is. So we are just about at 2 hours. This is officially the longest podcast, but I think it went really fast. I'm not in any hurry at all, but like, where do you want to, like, do you have like something else you're wanting to get into, or you have any other?
Yeah, I just really enjoy being here and talking with you. Yeah, it's just, like I said, just being able to get to know you more, get to know your story more, and just, you know, usually whenever you see me, I'm rushing home so I can help my wife with the kids. And that kind of thing, or between sessions or whatever, or you're doing an enormous amount of weight on the deadlift, and I'm just secretly jealous. And it's nice to be able to talk, and I'd love to do this again at some point, you know.
Definitely.
Yeah, I just appreciate being here and being able to share. Hopefully it was coherent, you know, for sure. But
yeah, I thought it was really good. I thought it went really fast. It's amazing how fast some of it goes, and like there's, I don't know if the listeners can hear or can tell rather, but usually there's no hitting pause. There's no editing. It's just like I'll ask beforehand, like, is there anything you want me to ask about? Sometimes people are just kind of shrug their shoulders and just like, oh, whatever. And then you named a couple things, and we just let it rip. So it's just very natural conversation, just like we're having a conversation, and we happen to be speaking into a microphone.
I actually did forget we were recording a couple times.
Yeah, it gets that way. So it seems like we could go on. You have definitely an open invitation to come on again. So is there something you want to end with other than that?
No, I think I'm good. I mean, I just I love what you're doing. I think that it's a service that people need, just to really live into their best version of themselves, is to find what they love, to do what they love, to really pursue it, and to find people that will support them encourage them to not quit when the obstacles inevitably come. And what was it? I just saw on Instagram, Sylvester Stallone, one of my heroes.
Oh yeah.
He's one of the reasons I got into fitness, of course. A lot of people are in the same boat. They finally, after 12 years, they lost the plaque that went to the Rocky statue that they had done after his most recent Rocky Balboa movie. It's a plaque had been missing for 12 years. They finally found it. I don't know where it was, but it said a famous quote: "It ain't about how hard you can hit, but how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward." That's how winning is done. That's not my best Rocky impersonation, but I'm a little dried out. Thanks. But it's true, and how hard can you push through obstacles and having people that can support you in community. Open yourself up to that. If you're at home right now and you're listening and you're kind of maybe on the fence about going into following your passion and pursuing what you love to do, just start small and take a baby step towards your goal and tell someone about it. Maybe someone can offer you some practical advice to be able to be a bit more successful because they've been there. Be open to hearing back feedback and just go after it. Like, you can do great things, and just believe in yourself and surround yourself with people who believe in you, and just go for it.
That's a good spot to end. So how can people get a hold of you for training?
Yeah, you can email me, atkinshealthandfitness@gmail.com, all spelled out. Atkins, Atkins, not the ADK. I've been called Adkins more than my fair share. Or you can go to my website, atkinshealthandfitness.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram as well. And just reach out to me. Love to hear from you.
And you do online training also, right?
I've done some of that, and I'd like to foray more into that just because of time constraints. With most people, it turns out, want to work out really early in the morning or in the evenings, and there's only so many of those time slots, and I need to fill some more time during the day. And I feel like online training is a great option for people who may not have the time to go into a gym, at certain times of day, or the finances to be able to afford that.
Or they can't stand the music.
The music, or maybe it's me. I don't know. So it's a great option for folks, and I certainly enjoy doing it because I just like seeing people make progress and they're reaching their goals. But it's an option for sure.
Thanks again for being on. I think that was really, really good. That was 2 hours. It goes really fast for me.
Yeah, me too.
And it seems like we could have kept going on and on, but we can save that for next time.
That sounds great.
So if you want to get a hold of me about training or about the show, you can do so at fitnessandconsciousness@gmail.com. So thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.